Hello, everybody. Just in time for the DCA recovery. After a very rocky weekend of tariff turmoil, we're going to talk about record rectness and positive signs or negative signs and kimchi and a bunch of other stuff. But before we jump in, let's see how the team are doing. We'll start with the top left corner. Mr. Mando, what's going on in your world? And did you sleep through it all?
I actually slept all through last night, like mega dump, classic European hours. I woke up and it was bad, but it looked like it got horrific last night. Well, the official figure was 2 billion, but the CEO of Bybit came out and said it was close to 8 to 10 billion of liquidations yesterday. Wow. I think most on-chain coins got absolutely decimated. We're seeing a bit of a decent bounce today, but yeah, I've come out the other side okay.
Unscratched. Marty.
Well, not unscratched.
Marty, I know you were flying in your what you call your G6 last night. Everything okay?
No. I was flying commercial. Yeah, I went across the country a couple times this weekend. All good. It was insane. Obviously, we saw max pain hit on the low side of most altcoins, up to 30 to 40% drops on everything, all initiated by Binance, creating like literally the most picture perfect liquidation ladder to the downside. I expect a full recovery on bullish news, and we saw it. I called it yesterday. There'll be massive bullish news for them to do it with such haste on a weekend. Yeah. And now we see David Sachs is talking CryptoZar with major US crypto policy at 4:30 Eastern today. So I expect to see something very bullish on that. Yeah, so overall, people, this is what we wanted. We wanted this flush. I showed everybody this morning on Twitter Binance's Solana wallet. I only have access to Solana, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. But you can see they sold probably $300 to $400 million of crypto over the weekend to get the price down to where they wanted it. Max pain, 175 Solana. Ethereum hit 2,500, I believe. Lower, sorry, 2,400.
Bloodbath, yeah.
Right. And it's over. So the leverage traders are out, capitulated. Now it's only up blue skies to me. That was picture perfect altcoin season beginning. Flush them out, run them up, and here we go.
And you've touched on about 5 of the agenda items today, so nice work. Quick correction, though. I saw this from Whale News, I think, and it says tomorrow. So can somebody verify that? Not today, tomorrow. But anyway, we'll get back to that later. And of course,
sorry,
CTO
I'm
buddy.
half an hour of sleep. Go ahead.
What's going on in your world? Picture perfect support. Back to 90K.
Absolutely. So the biggest liquidation event of all time, I read that this was. It's incredible. And I understand that. If I can share the chart just 1 second, because I think a lot of people felt that we have finally established about 100K and then it broke down. But if looking here, it's just support and resistance, guys. It's the same levels as we've had before. And we're still in this range. So when zooming out, looking at like this, it looks like there is a nothing burger here. Nothing has happened. We just touched support one more time. And so if we close like this looks fantastic, actually.
Yeah.
Support held again, long week down, and so on. But I think the drama for most people has not been the Bitcoin chart. It has really been the altcoins. I just saw this one. I haven't fact-checked it, but it says here that, for example, like new listings on Binance, like 2025 from start of the year, minus 95%. Like the best one is minus 75%. And the ones in the middle are down like 85, 90%. So I think this is the pain that most people are feeling here, that, oh, wow, could it go down that much, that fast? But yeah, it can. That's the aim. So, I mean, capital preservation lesson here, I think a lot of people have gotten these couple of days.
There's 2 pieces of good news. Actually, there's a lot of stuff happening under the scenes. But first of all, we're still up for the year by quite a bit for Bitcoin. So it's, we're already a month in, so we're still up for the year. But there's so much stuff to discuss. And this is typically, we've seen this movie before. Okay, if anybody remembers TT 1.0, we've seen it all before. We know exactly what happens next. So this dip that happened last night and early this morning was a massive buying opportunity. And I never say buy the dip or any of that stuff. You make your own decisions. But this is a buy the dip moment, or at least it was yesterday and early this morning. So we're going to talk about our agenda, and it's pretty extensive because there's a lot of moving parts here that tie into exactly what's going on. First of all, a little bit of on-chain stuff for Bitcoin. We'll look at what's happening there. Some red flags, some green flags. We'll look at the REKord REKT numbers and the Utterly REKT, which you showed as well, CTO. We'll talk about Plaza Accord 2.0 and what that means and why this tariff stuff is actually good for Bitcoin. But will the tariff stuff actually happen? We'll talk about tariff history, what it means. We'll talk about liquidity and M2 expanding. I know, Marty, you're on top of that too. And how literally the tariff wars will actually make the dollar stronger, which actually could sometimes be bad for Bitcoin, but there's a positive side. And we'll see Kimchi Premium as well. REKord Kimchi Premium that we haven't seen in a long time. We'll talk about that too. So basically, when a catastrophe happens, people scramble looking for their safety life raft, and that's Bitcoin. And they're willing to pay 20% over the odds to get it. And then we'll talk about volatility and what happens after all this tariff noise. And the answer is, again, we've seen history. We'll talk about the Golden Era Plan, Binance manipulation, Sol fees, and maybe a new ChatGPT moment. How does that all sound?
So good.
All right.
Good.
First, this breaking news here. Did we verify? I think it's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
It is tomorrow. You're right.
Good. I thought so. So that is, it's kind of bizarre. You've got one guy, you got all these Silicon Valley VCs running around the White House. David Sachs has an office there, and he lives right beside it. And he's got a pass; he can walk in and out whenever he wants. And he's driving not only the AI but crypto agenda for the country, which, if you asked me that a year ago, I'd say you're smoking crack or something. That's impossible, but that's huge. And then you got Doge happening as well. A lot of good stuff. And I know people think, oh, Silicon Valley VCs are bad and oh, Elon is bad. But no, it's actually going to be a good thing for the country. So people know what's going on. Now, let's talk about the first on-chain thing as well. Very clear, we can see here that retail have sold. I don't know if they dumped their Bitcoin hard to buy meme coins or whatever else, but the big players continue to buy hard, and retail is now selling again. Any thoughts on this, anybody? Do you see anything in the tea leaves as to why retail is dumping their Bitcoin? Or do they dump their Bitcoin to bail their perps out, which is another theory?
I mean, retail is generally a counter indicator, right? Like they tend to buy at local tops and sell at depression. So it's good if they are selling here. I mean, the whole market generally moves money from the many to the few. And yeah, that's how it's done. And I think you're right, James. I think that a lot of people perhaps didn't exit the market, but they took their Bitcoin and bought different meme coins and so on. Yeah. Those are the ones that's now down 90%. That's why people are so upset, so many.
Yeah. Marty, what's your take on this?
I mean, just as I said last week, I think retail, we're at the bottom of quantitative tightening. I don't think anyone has any money anyway. So if they did buy Bitcoin, they took profits quickly on that Trump pump to 100 and whatever thousand probably and got out. I just don't think retail has liquidity, personally. That will come. This is an institutional accumulation to sell to that retail once we get quantitative easing.
Yep, that's a very, very good point as well. Mando, what's on your tea leaf today?
Yeah, it's interesting to look at this chart. I guess the yellow is obviously retail here. So it's from the election, it really started to go down. I think that's probably makes sense. Bitcoin moved. And then I think a lot of people were chasing an altcoin cycle, which been taken to the woodshed and shot over the last 3 days. So I think that's what that shows. It's just that retail chased altcoins, probably more excessive risk taking. It'd be interesting to see this if this chart extended back to the last cycle and what was like what we saw at times of market froth.
Yeah, it's the same thing again. Typically in the last cycle, the whales move first and retails follow last. Just like CTO said, they're last to the party. They arrive when the food and drinks are gone, which is a big problem. But there's another alarming on-chain statistic too, And this is on-chain activity is extremely quiet. We know ordinals completely fell out of bed. They were responsible for the big pump in the early days. And now we see this weird consolidation phase where there's a huge decline in on-chain activity. The mempool is basically free for the first time in years. And when this happened before, either it can cut both ways. Either it precedes a big correction or it precedes a big surge in price, which means basically the surge in prices because people are holding. There's low short-term activity, which means most holders are not moving their coins. That's one scenario. The other scenario is the chain is dead. What do you guys think?
I think this is a very interesting chart. And I think it's something that if you think Bitcoin's going to be around for the next, many decades, you have to really pay attention to this. So this is essentially the fees that are being made on the Bitcoin network. Now, this big spike that you saw in 2023 onwards, that was the introduction of runes and ordinals. These are the fungible and non-fungible tokens that were built on Bitcoin inscriptions. It led to huge fees across Bitcoin. It was difficult to use the network. What we've seen is, and that was the equivalent of ETH or like altcoins on ETH, on EVM, right? Like you could basically create coins or create an NFT-like product on Bitcoin. All of those have gone down like 90% and no one's trading them. I actually put it into our chat before, but the top 5 runes on Magic Eden did 650K of volume yesterday. 650K. That's like a Solana meme coin probably does more volume than that. So it's like insanely low amounts of trading going on right now in Bitcoin runes and ordinals. But Bitcoin needs this. One thing that yes, we're all happy that the number of Bitcoins is finite, but when the number of Bitcoins runs out, how do you incentivize people to validate the network? That's one of the age-old questions of Bitcoin. And there's one school of thought that these fees would rise naturally to help negate the drop off of inflation basically to zero. The others, and then there's lots of other people who think that they may even have to have some sort of tail emission. Who knows? But the fact that fees are going down on Bitcoin is not good for Bitcoin long term. Like this is not in Bitcoin's roadmap. We want fees to be going up on Bitcoin, but I think this points to the idea that number one, it's less of a payments network than it's ever been. Largely, that has moved to stable coins plus other L1s, and then secondly, that the whole runes and ordinals not debacle, but like the fact that it hasn't caught on means that Bitcoin's got to find a new narrative for why fees will stay high when emissions drop. People are worried about something called a 51% attack, which you can kind of look up. But there is a chance that Bitcoin needs to solve this in the future.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. I've talked about this for years too. I was very concerned as the reward gets lower and lower, they're going to have to rewrite the protocol to jack up the fees to make it worthwhile and create a few other things. From the technologists here, CTO Marty, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think unfortunately the community kind of picked the wrong religion some years back here. I would have liked to see Bitcoin also have more utility, like used for at least some bigger payments or something like that to drive transactions. And the idea was that Lightning would fill that use case, but it hasn't really taken off for a lot of reasons. It's kind of clunky in many ways to use. So even people using Lightning tends to be some custodial solution. So Bitcoin hasn't really found this utility, which I think is a pity, actually. And I would have loved to see it used more. It doesn't have to be like ordinals and things like that, but I don't know, pay for basic things, at least in substantial amounts. I think it has a use case, and I hope that it comes to that point in the future.
Good point. Marty, any quick thoughts on this one? Any concerns?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. I think Bitcoin's become a store of value. It's a reserve asset. It's not intended to be moved around. I think the runes and ordinals movement, which has now ended, stimulated the mempool to levels that people thought were reasonable, but I always knew that would be short-lived. There's better execution chains for moving value. Bitcoin is a reserve asset. So this is not alarming to me. Just to me, just says runes and ordinals are over. Bitcoin is not being used as a execution network. It's not being used by retail to move small amounts of value. It still remains. If you look at on-chain data, it's still used for large transactions, which is what it's intended for. But there's other chains that are better for moving smaller transactions, $10,000 to $100,000. Ethereum is widely used, Solana. There's just better things for that. So there you go.
Okay, let's get into, we're going to do a little bit of a roundabout here. We've got to talk about the REKord REKT numbers, why that happened, but then come back to the other reason why the REKord REKT numbers were triggered, which is the tariffs, and why that could actually be good for Bitcoin. Well, it's a bit of a complicated story because all this tariff stuff is very tied into very complex macro, a lot of moving parts. But first of all, we had 2.2 billion REKT, and Mando, you reported it's actually probably closer to 10 billion. What the hell happened here? And you have the alts that you shared, the Binance 25 listings, all completely smashed so far year to date. Terrifying if you hold any of these things. Some of the names I've never even heard of before, but it's been really, really hard. And then we have Binance moves 34 billion with market makers. Wintermute in 30 days. Marty, you've been tracking this very heavily too. So we have, first of all, what lit the fuse was the tariffs, and then a huge Sunday night sell-off. Sunday night's normally very bullish, massive amounts lost, and then alts completely destroyed and wrecked. Ethereum dominance in the toilet, like we haven't seen in many, many years. And then, of course, who's behind it all? So we'll start with Mando. You mentioned this could be 10 billion.
Yeah, so the CEO of Bybit actually went on and said that they have a rate limit on their API, and that the liquidations at Bybit alone were bigger than the figure reported. He thinks it's closer to 8 to 10 billion. So very, very credible source is saying that this figure was actually closer to 8 to 10 billion. The CEO of Bybit has come out. I think what we had here, and this, it's very easy to look at the tariffs and be like, blame it all on the tariffs. But I actually think since the Trump meme coin, you had a spiral here. Particularly in Solana, but also in a lot of other alts. And to set that up, what really happened is Trump came in, drew a lot of liquidity into his coin. If you remember, a lot of the coins were down 40-50% just after Trump released his coin. They rebounded, then Melania dropped her coin, and everyone got very scared about the huge amount of token issuance. That's why I was like, well, interesting to look at some of these Sol DeFi coins like Jupiter, Ray, that sort of stuff. Then it's very, very clear that people started to rush for the kind of exits on the back of that Melania coin. Everyone was like, right, I can't own anything because a new coin's going to come. And we had a few of them that ran up to like 2 or 3 billion or maybe a few hundred million. And every single time a new coin came, everyone was dumping their existing coins. And I think what this has shown is that you can have a bit of a perfect storm with these pump fund coins now on Solana. Solana, particularly for meme coins and AI, it's dominated like the amount of trading that's happened on them. But the only liquidity pools are the burnt liquidity pools that Pump Fund has, which is normally about 1% of the total market cap, let's say, is in the LPs. And furthermore, Binance and most of the major exchanges have gone through a policy of not wanting to list these coins for spot. They've listed them all for perps, right?
Yep.
So you have a situation here where you have new meme coins or new AI coins. You have Trump coming in, drew liquidity. Then people are scared about new token listings. And then every single bit of bad news, everything was just getting smashed. So you had the stuff about DeepSeek last week. And then this week with the trade, like, yeah, it's bad. Okay. Stocks are down we're down 1.5% today. There is no reason that should mean that these coins are all down 70, 80%, or sometimes even 90%, right? What this is a far more micro-based thing about the liquidity in the system, particularly on Solana. So you saw a huge, basically cascading liquidations. So like most people were either, they could only sell, the only liquidity pool is these 1% liquidity pools, or they could trade perps. So you have these huge liquidation wicks on a number of these on-chain coins for perps, and then the only exit was these 1% liquidity pools. So this was across Solana. The Solana meme coin market cap, which includes a lot of the AI coins, hit an all-time high in November of around 23 billion. It was around 14 billion yesterday, so it was down, decimated since November, and that's even after having added Trump in that period, which is a fairly huge meme coin. So it's been a very, very tough period for a lot of these. It does mean that they bounce back in the same way that they go up. They can go parabolically down. And we have seen stablecoin supply soar on Solana. I don't know if you guys are following Solana.
Oh yeah, doubled.
It's
doubled in 3 weeks.
It's up 130% in a month. It's about 11 or 12 billion right now. Total stablecoin supply is up at like 220 now. It's like if you're paying attention, this is why I don't think we're anywhere close to like a cycle top here, because stablecoins are just, there's so much money coming on chain. But what this does show is that in the last year, the market dynamic has changed, and that pump fund is listing tens of thousands of coins a day. And because the LPs of these coins are so small relative to the market caps, and because the exchanges are mainly listing them for perps, very rarely for spot, very, very rarely. I don't think any of the recent AI coins were listed for spot on Binance. All of the coins you showed there on that list were all for perps, and the same for most of the memes. That when liquidity exits Solana, or when you have a sell-off with these pump fund coins, you actually just lead to the most horrific sell-offs that I think I've seen. There's nothing that should have said that some of these coins were 70, 80, 90%. That's the on-chain stuff. For ETH, I don't know. I actually don't know. There were rumors that a big ETH fund blew up. There was a fund called Scimitar, which is relatively well known, has been blamed before for certain sell-offs. I don't know if that's a joke or not, but the fact that ETH went down 25% in 1 week, maybe we'll hear about somebody being liquidated. That one was kind of nuts to me.
Yeah, there's a question came in from Gum here. I thought it was interesting. I'm going to give this to you, Marty, if you have any thoughts on this one. And thank you for all that great stuff as well, Matt, regarding the background behind this liquidity, cascading liquidation set across the Solana chain. Marty, what do you think of this question from Gum?
Let me have a look at the question.
Is it not showing on the screen? Basically, ETH holders are getting frustrated, and at one stage, they're probably going to capitulate and move.
Yeah, I mean, Ethereum dominance dropped. Remember, I said Ethereum dominance should be 10%. Well, it's at 10.22. So it's around in my zone. I think Ethereum should be around 8 to 10% of crypto, not as high as 20% when there was no competition. So it's come down to where it should be, in my opinion. You can see the Binance max pain for Ethereum was hit, which was 2180. So I agree with Mando. I think there was some large, long positions from funds in the 2,500 to 2,200 zone. That was the target of the whole strategy, pretty much. But guys, yeah, I've been tracking this for years. This is not new. Over the last years, this is a pretty normal capitulation. This is what happens before we move up. Before the exchanges move up and mark up crypto, they're going to remove all these large leverage positions. And they started at the 30th at 1:30 p.m. My alerts started firing. I watch market maker transfers over $4 million across Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Solana now. Thank you, Arcam, for including Solana. Please include Sui so we can watch that too. And they started firing off, and it didn't stop until early this morning, actually. When I got in from the airport, I could see that the interesting thing, the difference in this flush that I've never seen before is Binance sold, I don't know, $300 to $400 million of crypto since the 30th, sending it to market makers, which sell it on the exchange. And Coinbase has been buying it up. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, guys. I'm a fact-based guy. There is some kind of a strategy going on where Binance is moving a lot of assets to Coinbase through the order book, initiating this flush. Very interesting. And I'm sure we will hear this news come out. Something's going on. I don't know whether it's a made in USA crypto only narrative, which would line up with the Trump, crypto initiatives. Could be that. Maybe Binance is exiting non-American crypto. I don't know. But Bitcoin was strong. If you guys don't understand, typically Bitcoin would have also capitulated. It did not. It was extremely impressive.
Well, I have a theory. I have a theory on that, Marty.
Shot up to 62%. I mean, a new high.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So I've been tracking the.
Can we bring up
Yeah,
that chart, CTO? Can we bring up that Bitcoin dominance chart? This is
Yeah, absolutely. If I can share the screen, I want to point out one other thing before that. So Ethereum, in terms of volume for DeFi volume, has now actually dropped to number 3. So it's Solana. I mean, all of them have dropped versus last week, but it's Solana, then it's actually BSC, and then it's Ethereum, just slightly ahead.
Look at the difference.
Yeah.
Look at the difference between Sol and Ether. That is insane. Trump is part of that, but that is crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's double. And it's not that everything has already moved over. No, the TVL, like the cumulative number, is still, what is it, like 3 times higher on Ethereum. So to the question that you popped up, James, you know, what could happen here if Solana actually takes over this TVL one way or another? That would be a massive upside. That's the answer. And that's why I think this is interesting. And if we go over to the charts, it's brutal for Ethereum. So here is the ETH to, sorry, let me share this tab. So here is the ETH to BTC chart. And I mean, the candle here, this wick here, we haven't seen like anything like this for years.
When last do we see that level at the bottom there in chronology? When last? Was it 2020?
I don't think ever. We've never seen a candle that big.
We've never seen a candle like this. And in terms of levels, yeah, it was 2020, Marty. You're absolutely right. That we haven't been this low versus BTC since end of 2020 or 1st of January 2021. So it is absolutely
gave up its entire pump. Ethereum gave back its entire pump.
The past 4 years, basically, removed here. While if we look at Sol to BTC, it looks completely different. So remember the previous chart here. Like actually nothing has happened with Sol versus BTC this entire period. And now this support held again. Support is at about 0.002. So it held again, and it's in this extremely tight range. And at some point, something's going to change here. You know, it's going to break out of this range one way or another. And that move could be explosive. If it's on the upside, it's an enormous possibility. If it's on the downside, I don't know then why that would be. It would have to be some massive unlock, something. But I think that this is one of the most interesting opportunities, both from a fundamental perspective because of the TVL that we just looked at, and also from a chart perspective. It's not so often that you get something so well defined here. So very, very interesting to see. And then you talked about the Bitcoin dominance, or
good lord,
yeah, that ate the Ethereum. You're looking at a mirror reflection of the Ethereum dominance here.
Exactly,
because look at that wick.
Because Ethereum is still such a big part of this index, so we're seeing this like huge pump up here. But this also means that the market is again Bitcoin led. Like this trend line that seemed like it would break here and maybe we would launch into some Altseason. It didn't happen. It went all the way back to the trend line, as if nothing has happened over November and December. And now we're back there again on the trend line. So that's really how the market looks overall. But I do think that there are, it could be a key point in the market here that perhaps many of these alts that have backed up 90%, perhaps they start building bottom patterns again and so on. So I think that it's definitely important to not, get depressed here and give up.
Yeah,
as many people will do. Many people do that mistake consistently. They give up at the bottom.
Yeah, we'll talk about some alt signals in a minute. I want to go back to what Marty said, which is quite profound. Binance dumping Bitcoin onto market makers, and then Coinbase buying it up. So I track all the OTC desks.
I track the numbers, James.
Yeah,
I track the numbers in a
people
spreadsheet.
ask me, why are you looking at the OTC desks? Who cares? Because that's what supplies IBIT and MicroStrategy, and all these players. So the OTC desk balance 7 months ago went from 480,000 down to 118,000 last week. Now it's 115,000, but Coinbase added 5,000 Bitcoin in the last 2 days. So you're dead right, Marty. Coinbase are grabbing the coin and sticking it in OTC to fund their customers, because when they get that OTC coinage, they sell at a massive premium, probably 5%.
Absolutely.
So when you see the price of Bitcoin at 100 grand, Sailor will buy at 105. Who's making that 5%? Another fun fact as well, Mrs. 200, the new, what I call Mr. 100 wallet, bought 600 Bitcoin yesterday, and they sold 600 Bitcoin at 105K. So they made 7.5 million in a 2-day kind of scalp trade as well. So a lot of interesting stuff. And what's amazing about crypto is it's all transparent. You can, if you take the time to learn, you'll see exactly what's going on behind the scenes. Anyway, back to the agenda.
Just one last thing. Since the beginning of the year, Binance's Solana balance was 25 million Solana on their wallets. It is now 16 million. They've sold 10 million SOL, and Coinbase has bought it all up. Now that's probably for ETF issuers.
Exactly.
OTC.
Exactly.
Very
good point. Let's talk about another thing which I find fascinating. And the OGs in the Bitcoin space used to always watch the Kimchi Premium, because it's very telling of what will happen next in Bitcoin. Are you guys familiar with the Kimchi Premium? It's what the local people on the ground in Korea pay for Bitcoin. But basically, the premium hit 20% yesterday. And when there's a crisis, people run to Bitcoin because it's the life raft. And it was just incredible to see that huge premium as well. And the question is that bullish or bearish? So whether it's good or bad for Bitcoin depends. If you're an arbitrager, you're making a killing right now. If you are in Korea retail and you're scrambling to fend off a weak Korean won, you're paying over the odds. And it just shows you as well how the Korean market is not as, say, liquid or as open as other markets. But typically when the Kimchi Premium is high, it's a very positive sign for Bitcoin. Thoughts, anybody?
Yeah, I think this is a mixture of two things. Firstly, it's the real worry in a bunch of different currencies which aren't the dollar right now. The dollar's going higher. Korea, I think, hit an all-time low, or at least a multi-year low versus the dollar this morning. So people are going, right, I don't want to own the won right now. I want to own Bitcoin. So part of it's that, and then part of it is the reverse of that chart we saw at the start of the show, which is, I'm sure if we had an updated chart for retail, I bet a bunch of them rushed back into Bitcoin yesterday. So I think it was a mixture of alts getting slaughtered and the won being very, very low. But this should be good for Bitcoin, for sure.
Good. That typically is what it means. Now, you did mention dollar. Tariff wars typically make the dollar stronger. We have to talk about the dollar because a lot of people believe a strong Dixie means a weak Bitcoin, but not in all cases. And this is where it gets kind of tricky. First of all, if we go back to where we are right now, every time there's a crisis, the first thing to recover is always Bitcoin. Whatever the crisis is, Bitcoin recovers very quickly within 10 days. And then within 60 days, it's bonkers. So Bitcoin is not dead. For all the people that think we're in a bear market, that's not true at all. The other thing as well, we have history to look at. This is the Trump Tariffs 1.0 history. The little red mark there is the dip in the S&P 500. It's always very short-lived. Actually, that one is a little longer. Markets move faster because there's much more asymmetric information out there in the world, and retail traders are much more briefed as to what's going on because mainstream media has lost all their experts, and local people like you guys tell the market exactly where it's going. So the market's much more liquid and moves much faster. There is a hugely interesting theory, which is really complex. And this is the Plaza Accord 2.0 theory from a guy called Jeff Park, who is wicked smart, by the way. You do, yeah. So the theory, I'll try to summarize it. Real thing is basically in the old agreement, it made the dollar weaker, but Jeff Park expects something similar might happen, reducing the demand for dollars. This usually helps things like gold and Bitcoin, but could be an alternative to protect against a falling dollar. Again, his whole paper is really cryptic, but there was a fellow spoke about the golden age of America. There are talks today with Mexico and Canada I do believe this is the art of the deal. It's shock and awe. You threaten your counterpart in negotiations, you scare the hell out of them, and then you can negotiate from a position of strength to get what you want. And I think we're seeing that short-term pain right now, but the long term, it'll be very good, not only for crypto, but for the economy and the world, etc. So, Marty, you know Jeff. So what do you think of this theory?
Yeah, I think it's an extremely interesting time because if you remember, there was that Smoot-Hawley tariff in the 1930s signed by Hoover, which was very similar to what Trump's doing, where you start off with threatened tariffs to stimulate political negotiation. And it can backfire. Remember, a lot of people blame that tariff law for not causing, but extenuating the Great Depression in the 30s. So, and then we saw today, Sheinbaum, president of Mexico, did back down. And so, and I think Canada will oblige. These are political strategies, people. I always said we need an entrepreneurial president in this country to come in and shake things up, the status quo, and that's what Trump is doing. These tariffs are a threat. If you mess with us and don't take care of the things we're talking about, then we will weaponize our trade agreements. And he did it very fast. And the response has been, okay, we will bend down. Mexico is sending 10,000 troops to their border. They're going to address the fentanyl and weapon crossing the border issue. They're starting to take care of their border responsibilities, which they had completely lapsed on. And Canada has been taking advantage of the US for years. So I think that you can look at it in two ways. First of all, there's a political side, which 100% the evidence today is that politically it's worked. We probably will see these tariffs back down once the political negotiations go in the favor of Trump. But then with regards to Bitcoin, it's quite interesting because I think that with the advent of stablecoins, which are digital dollars, dollar strength has never been more important. Yep. I think injecting digital dollars into the world, supports a strong dollar. So part of the David Sachs crypto czar narrative, I think, is going to be to increase US-backed stablecoins, create more demand for that across the world, and strengthen the dollar. So I kind of support that as well. The whole narrative that when the DXY goes up, Bitcoin goes down, I think that's when Bitcoin was more seen as a currency threat. I don't see Bitcoin as a currency threat anymore. I think it's become a legitimate store of value based on the Michael Saylor thesis. And it benefits from a strong dollar. If anything, crypto benefits from a strong dollar.
Exactly.
Because of the advent of US-backed stablecoins. So it's an interesting time. You have these juxtaposition strategies going on. But as far as tariffs go, I think it's a political tactic.
Yeah.
I have a question. Can I show one chart connected to exactly that? So here is the 1 hour chart. The bars are the Bitcoin. The purple line is the inverse of the DXY. So when the DXY goes up, this goes down. And as you can see here, apart from that, the market of DXY was closed here. It has followed exactly like hour by hour. So a common question here you are macro experts here. What is the causality? Clearly, there is a connection. We cannot, everyone can see that. And it's basically playing out by the hour. But why is it like that? What's the causality here?
Yeah, basically, if you look at a historical perspective of what happens with tariffs, anytime anybody tries to retaliate with their currency, they lose. So you're seeing a lot of these currencies get hit over the weekend and overnight. Retaliatory tariffs do not stop your currency from tumbling. And this goes back to the Plaza Accord 2.0 we just mentioned as well. When that happens, even though you think logically, okay, Dixie's going to rise because all the other currencies are going to drop. We saw that with the Kimchi Premium. But now there is no other currency. The cleanest shirt in the laundry is the US dollar. And that's tied to Bitcoin. So everybody's rushing either for Bitcoin or for the US dollar right now. And all the other countries, Canada, Mexico, etc., even China is smart enough to know they can retaliate, but they should just let their currency depreciate, and that deals with the whole tariff anyway. So net, I think it's just a wash. So what you're seeing here right now is a correlation between Bitcoin and Dixie because of this exact reason. Marty?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, no, I
Sorry.
agree with you. Exactly what you just said. I think that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the dollar, how high will it go? Will it hit the 115 number again? Can you pull up the DXY there, CTO?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's have a look for some historic strength of the dollar. Go back here a couple of years.
Zoom out a little bit. Sorry.
There. So you saw the dollar ran up in the end of 2022 to a local high. The question is the dollar going to double top? So everyone thinks it's going to double top at that number around 115 and then start declining back down to the 70s. That's pretty much, pretty much Forex traders believe that's what's going on. I'd beg to differ. I think the Trump shakeup might create one of the strongest dollars we've ever seen. So we'll watch this play out as the shows progress. But there's the DXY. You can see there. You go. Look at that acceleration from 21 to 2023. The parabolic nature, and then how it was stopped abruptly, brought into a channel, and now it seems to be pulling back into that same pattern. I think that the dollar is this is make America great again, guys. This is a different era. This is the era of the dollar, I believe. Everything's changed.
There is some breaking news as well.
The peso hit all-time low. The Canadian dollar hit all-time low yesterday. And this is just continuing. Even the Kimchi Premium. You know that I had Sam Bankman-Fried on a space once before, obviously before the whole collapse. And you know that Sam Bankman-Fried made his initial $1 billion using the Kimchi Premium arbitrage. And the reason he said that it exists is because Korea has such tight capital controls that internally within Korea, the price of all assets gets a premium because you can't trade out. So if you have a partner in Korea that does your bidding for you, accumulates the asset, and then you somehow exchange value outside of the system, that's how he made his money. So these are all tied to foreign exchange as well, like you said, James. So the strong dollar will introduce Kimchi Premium, capital controls. China will have the same problem. It's going to be a chaotic first few months, I believe, and that's fine.
There's some breaking news here as well. And before we go to Mando, the tariffs have been delayed. They're supposed to go into effect.
There you go.
Today, the tariffs are now delayed until March 1st, which basically buys them 4 weeks to renegotiate a whole bunch of things. And these tariffs will probably never go into effect. And the reason is, if you look at, say, just the US auto industry, excluding Tesla, all the GM, Ford, even the Hondas and the Toyotas that make cars in the United States and South Carolina and stuff, they all depend on parts made in Canada and Mexico. So if you put a 25% tariff in place, you are absolutely shooting the US car industry, except for Tesla, in the head. They will die. They will stop selling cars because their margins are already so thin. You add a 25% tariff on 60% of the product that goes into the cars is from these other countries, they're dead. So it was never going to happen. Anyway, it's a shock tactic, art of the deal. Mando, over to you, sir.
Yeah, I think a lot has been said. Look, I think brinkmanship this is clearly what he's doing. I don't think there's any real major benefit for tariffs on Mexico and Canada, in my opinion. And I think Trump kind of knows that too. Yeah. I think one thing that you need to be aware of if you're based in the US is that the US economy is 10 times the size of Canada. It's over 10 times the size of Mexico. They can't import as many goods as you are buying from Canada, right? Like, there's no way that Canada can buy as many goods that the US can to try and level that trade balance. It's the same with Mexico. It's just maths. It's going to be the same with every major economy. I think this one was more about posturing. It's more about the stronger border. Obviously, as we've said, it's more like social issues, potentially some stuff around defense. I know the US does a lot of Canadian defense. The real battle here, and where you will see tariffs, I think, for a long time, is not these two. These two will get resolved. They'll probably do a resolution with the UK too. It's China. It's China and it's the BRICS, in my opinion, but like mainly China. China's economy is roughly well, not the same size as the US, but definitely close. I think it's about $17-18 billion versus trillion dollars GDP versus the US is around 22-23. That's the one where I think the fight could be for a lot longer. And there's very little need, I think, or want from Trump to kind of come to a resolution. With your allies, it does make sense to maybe specialize in different economies, and you have to appreciate that maybe you're much bigger than like your nearest bordering countries. But it does make sense to kind of come to some sort of a deal, and he's using it for posturing to kind of get, like you said, out of the deal. Like, yeah, you're going to get more troops at the border now. Maybe they'll get a better terms on certain goods coming into the US. Against China, I don't think he's going to want to come to a deal. I really don't. And I think a lot of those economies look far more precarious. I think the BRICS ones in particular as well are going to be a more interesting fight. China's a more direct competitor, but does he have a hard line against Brazil? Does he have a hard line against India? Do you have a hard line against Saudi Arabia? Like, these are they've been allies in the past, or they work with the US in certain ways, but they've also been threatening the dollar. And I think that's the more interesting fight. This one is just the foothills of a fight. The big fight is still to come.
Oh, definitely.
China, and it's with the BRICS. Europe is going to be like interesting. I don't know if Trump necessarily feels like he needs to come to a deal with Europe either, but there is very little desire, I think, from Trump to like resolve those sort of fights. So I think this one will be, and he'll get some kudos for kind of coming to a better deal, and maybe you have small tariffs for a small amount of time versus Canada, but I don't think there's any benefit to the US really having to massive trade war with Canada. None, in my opinion. I think they both benefit from each other, and there's good to have, like, this is Econ 101, that like it is good with allies with similar economies to yours, with similar allies on a range of different social issues for you to have trade. When you have more direct competition against them, i.e. enemies, I don't think necessarily Trump is going to have to come to a deal here, and I think you'll see tariffs for a long time.
Okay, and if anybody is reading my posts over the weekend, they know that this is all going to be a nothing burger and it's all going to blow over, and that's exactly what's panned out. We've got Bitcoin over 99,000 as we speak. Everything is rebounding. Solana went from $174 to $208 in less than 10 hours. Bonkers. This is the only thing this audience needs to worry about. M2 is expanding, and it's about to go into high gear. Who wants to take this one? Because this is the tailwind pushing all our bags up in the air. Marty?
I mean, M2, I follow all the time. Yeah. If we look at the balance sheet, interest rates, unemployment, and M2, we look eerily like 2008. 2007, 2008. In my opinion, we're just around the corner from ending quantitative tightening. The first step we are pausing quantitative tightening. I think there'll be an emergency meeting coming from Besant and Jerome Powell, and I think they're going to pause quantitative tightening, stop that part, and then slowly move into quantitative easing and increase the money supply. The surpluses are just too big. Yeah, I posted this week, the surplus in 2024 was 87 billion. The surplus right now going into 2025 is 700 billion. Just that alone has to be printed. $2.1 trillion has to be printed just to cover the last year's debts in the budget, let alone stimulate an economy and stop a major recession or depression. So I think we're going to see interest rates be tempered, probably 25 basis points coming up in March. And I think we'll see a move to quantitative easing and money supply shoot up like you've never seen before, to the tune of, I would say, 9 to 10 trillion, like 2008 initially, but much higher going forward to stimulate.
In fact, Janet Yellen hinted at that as well, that was coming. So we all know big M2 money supply is coming. We had a little bit of a glitch in global liquidity. It shot up at the beginning of the year and took a bit of a breather, but it's going to head back up as well. It's going to follow M2 and what it's doing. But just so everybody knows, the reason we talk about foreign exchange and the dollar and other currencies and macro is because it determines the direction of where Bitcoin goes with all our alts and other assets too. So I think that was very good. Let's talk about crypto after that long intro. This is absolutely mind-blowing. Solana breaks $1 billion in fees. All the money, all the activity is being made and spent on this particular chain. There was a recent calculation recently that calculated the price to earnings ratio of Solana. It trades at 30 right now because it's making so much money. It's the only chain that's making a ton of money. Any thoughts on this, Mando?
Yeah, look, this has been the thesis for the last year and longer with Solana. The revenues are absolutely insane. It's obviously dominated most of the DEX volume. I think the only other chain which really makes similar is
Tron.
Tron. Yeah, Tron.
Stable
Which
coins.
also held up relatively well, even over the last 24 hours. Like Tron continues to trade pretty well, but Solana's metrics are just crazy when it comes to DEX volume and for revenue like this. I do think that this, when ETH fell yesterday, there's a reason it like that is a symptom of a much longer decline, right? Like something falls 25% in a wick and has struggled to bounce back today. Yeah, it could be one whale exiting, but there also wasn't one whale entering. And I think that's something to be said here. Like, yeah, you can look at it just like, oh yeah, some guy got out or somebody got liquidated, but I feel as though ETH's position, as CTO showed at the start of the program, like it's becoming more and more precarious. You're seeing over the last month. I was looking at it even today. So Solana's up 10%, ETH is down 20%. Bitcoin's up 5% in that period. So, well, that's year to date even. So that's like that is huge moves there, and like we keep on calling for the bottom of it. I think Solana's continues to be my favorite chain. You do have the unlocks obviously starting this month, a couple billion, and then I think it's a couple billion next month as well. But I think it's still in the best spot.
Yeah, and that's only a 2% lockup given the market cap of over 100 billion. By the way, the market cap fell to 84 billion last night. Now it's back above 102. So the volatility is insane. But the question that we all have, let's look at this.
Can I ask one stupid question to you, James? What are they using the revenue for?
Some chains like Jupiter are using half of the money they make to buy back the tokens. Other chains, it's going into just building out more capabilities. Others, the people that run the chain, putting it in their pockets. It's profitable. I mean, I think there was a few weeks ago, there was 3 dApps on Solana that actually make more than Solana itself. So basically, you got to think of, I always say the shopping mall analogy for describing how a blockchain works. So imagine you have the Solana blockchain, it's a big shopping mall, and on one end you've got a big anchor store. I don't know, I don't go to malls, but maybe a Macy's or a Nordstrom or something like this. And on the other end, another big anchor store. And then you got really good anchor restaurants and all these. So they pay rent to the blockchain to have their stores in this mall. But all the stores themselves make a lot of money depending on what they sell. And the better the blockchain, the more stores it can attract, which is the more traffic it can attract. So when people walk into the store, they'll buy a mink coat. Heaven forbid they'd anywhere do that, but at an expensive store. And then they have dinner at one of the fine restaurants. That's basically a blockchain. It's a very crude analogy, but it helps me explain it to people. So that's CTO, how it works, I think.
That's for a lot of the protocols. I think for Solana, part of this pays for the inflation of Solana, right? Solana does have a 6% inflation rate at the moment, although it's being proposed to go lower.
4.85%.
Right, it's actually going to go lower. So, yeah, like these fees, some of them are recycled, some of them go to the foundation, but they don't have a buyback policy. Actually, there is a burn, isn't there? There is a burn on Solana. Part of part of it's a burn, yeah.
Half burnt. Marty, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, all eyes on. Well, obviously, we know Solana's max pain was hit. I think now it'll be a run for the fences up on the top side, but it's all eyes on the approval of the ETFs now. I think Van Eck, Bitwise, 21 shares. It's days away from hearing news on this. And then I think it's got to be a run to the races. But the analogy is really, if you look at Ethereum, the profit making is on the L2s. On Solana, the profit making is on the ecosystem platforms. So it's kind of a similar thing. On Solana, if you build an app on Solana, you make a lot of money. In Ethereum, if you build an L2, you make a lot of money. And that's part of the problem with Ethereum, is the L2s are making the money, it doesn't go into Ethereum. So that's kind of the analogy. It's an extremely profitable infrastructure on top of which small businesses and large businesses can be built. And that's part of its valuation, is the extent of the economy that can be built on top of this money velocity. And that's the value of Solana. But we'll see with these ETF approvals, what's happening. People are now starting, the rumors are this might be one of the greatest technology listings in history, the Solana ETFs. It's a true tech stock, a Solana spot in kind. Remember, these are in kind, meaning that the creation and redemptions of the Solana ETFs will be in Solana. Means it'll be transparent on chain and will have price impact. So it's going to be a whole other adventure to the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs.
In fact, breaking news. Yeah,
it's extremely exciting.
The in-kind is so important because Larry Fink has been talking about it. Talk to us about the new NASDAQ rule as well regarding in-kind, because that changes the game completely. Between that and staking, in fact, there was news somewhere. Let me get the staking news out of the way because it's all this stuff is tied together. Hold on a second before I forget the staking news. This is big. With Gary Gensler gone, Kraken resumes staking. And we have that and the in-kind ETFs. This is all big, and this could be the catalyst for
There we go.
season.
That's a beautiful chart I posted. Yes, there we go. Look at that, people. If you're not bullish enough, look at that. This weekend was that capitulation to the trend line. I know it's hard, but just zoom out and keep perspective. Look at what we're just about to have.
And patterns do repeat. CTO, what do you think of this pattern? This chart's been floating around now for a few days. I know you shared it, Marty. I shared it in Octa on Tuesday. What do you think of this one, CTO? Does it rhyme to you? I think you're muted.
Sorry. If I can share two perspectives on that. So here is the market cap of the altcoins as such. So not including Bitcoin and not including the stable coins. Yeah. So it's just like the speculative altcoins. And of course, we had this enormous flush here. Today, actually. But I mean, this could be it. Could be that it turns here. This was like the resistance, then found support here. Perhaps it could start running up from here. And I think that we have to see something like this, something that happened in, when was it now? End of November, where suddenly the Bitcoin dominance falls off a cliff, suddenly falls off a cliff. And that time it kind of just reverted. So not much happened, really. It was like a nothing burger. We came back here. We're back here today. But for Altseason to happen, it has to start looking like this. It has to start looking like this on this chart. And I think if it happens again, I'm going to react again. If we start seeing something like this, second time might be the charm here. And perhaps altcoins might really start running versus BTC. Usually when it happens, Bitcoin has to be kind of stable. Bitcoin cannot be all over the place. It cannot shoot up like 30-40% and the whole world is going to do Bitcoin reserves. Then altcoins will erect because everyone FOMO into Bitcoin. Bitcoin can also not fall off a cliff. It cannot fall out of support and get everyone worried like happened today. Then altcoins will also erect. Bitcoin has to kind of be stable and boring. That's the environment where the altcoins tend to really run, because Bitcoin is boring. People have made a lot of money. It's at a higher level. Money starts flowing over from Bitcoin into the altcoins. But I think the other aspect here is that there are so many of them. So in previous seasons, you could basically buy any altcoin because there's like 500 of them that have any realistic chance of going anywhere. So you buy any of those 500, you're going to be fine. Now there's like 1 million new ones every day. So you have to have the accuracy a little bit better, because the percentage of those that will make it, it's not going to be 70% anymore or 80% or all of them. It's going to be a small fraction of the projects that actually run. But I mean, we saw it during the AI coin booms, the meme coin booms, and I think we will have more of those. Absolutely. And I think we will see it in the chart. I think we will sit here and talk about it when it happens. I don't think there's any risk to miss it.
Yeah. A lot of mixed emotion out there. And it's funny because crypto is like religion. No matter what asset you talk about, you're going to offend somebody. This is a good one from Mando. Walk us through this.
Sorry.
It might be.
Yeah, so this is something that, just kind of following on with what CTO just said, like the number of coins. So this shows altcoins performance versus Bitcoin. Red is 2017, so you had a nice altcoin performance, altcoin cycle. This is 2021. Again, a nice altcoin cycle, and this is the current 2024-2025 cycle. We have not seen an altcoin cycle, even after the Bitcoin cycle bottom. This was when Pump Fund was created, equivalent of around first quarter of last year, and that's when you've seen tens of thousands of new coins every single day, all with these low liquidity pools, a lot of them not being listed on major exchanges. I think you just have to appreciate that the market has, like, the structure of the market has changed. There's just so many new coins every single day. It's so difficult to pump, have a broad-based altcoin season where you pump all of these different coins. Like Bitcoin dominance just hit 64% yet last night in 1 wick. I just don't know how we can even call for an altcoin season right now. Like it's whenever there's even an attempt at it, even when there's just like bullish news just about one of the L1s, like Solana has had really bullish news. And I guess Sol dominance has gone up slightly, but altcoin seasons are just they're just so difficult right now. It's very, very clear that the structure has changed with just so many coins each day. You're gonna have mini altcoin seasons for all these different sectors, but I think Bitcoin dominance can just keep going. I thought there was a shot when it went down to like 57, and then it looked like it was going to retest that trend line which CTO showed, but now it just like broke through that again to the upside. That chart doesn't look like something you should fade, in my opinion.
No, and it's so well said as well, Amanda, what you said there. There's always an alt season somewhere, but you got to look at the narratives, and you got to be in the narrative before the narrative pumps, and then remember to get out as well. I think it'll be a very selective alt season. We have so many what they call dino coins, and we have everything floating to one chain. Everything bleeding into one chain, and that's just the reality. And I know people groan, it's like, oh, stop talking about that, but that's just what's happening. That's just what the data says. So there's one, we're going just over the hour. I've got one other topic that kind of broke news yesterday. Let me see, is it this one? This one, because we do talk a lot about AI, because AI is going to impact all of our lives. CTO, you've been on Era Digitalis for a long time too. This guy called Shea Bouleur was talking about some fellow, I can't remember his name. He spoke about the ChatGPT moment is coming for robots, just like we had for AI. And he talks about NVIDIA being the backbone for robotics, Tesla, Optimus, robot and AI factory automation, the machine that builds a machine, and Amazon, robotic-driven fulfillment and logistics, 3 big plays. Who wants to take this one first? Do you believe in the next 1, 2, or 3 years we'll get this crazy ChatGPT moment where robots will be able to talk to you, they'll be able to do productive work, they'll be able to replicate a lot of what humans do in the real world? A lot of people believe that's going to happen real fast.
Yeah, I think this is obvious. And I think the only way that China gets out of the problems that it's in is also aiming for stuff like this. Like, this is actually the only solution to the population dynamics in many different countries. Surprisingly, Europe continues to not care about it. But a lot of the Asian economies are pushing for this, and obviously the US is too. I think we spoke about it even last week with DeepSeek. I just think AI spending only goes up. Like, yes. That, if that was the Sputnik moment, like you're going to see robotics and AI, just trillions of dollars be sent into these spaces over the next 4-5 years.
So how are you positioning yourself, Mando? And then we'll go around the horn real quick.
Yeah, well, I think actually owning some of the base L1s is not a terrible way to look at it. Owning some of the AI meets crypto sector, I think is a good way to play it. Although obviously they've been caught in a lot of these crosswinds of this whole liquidity suck over the last couple of months. And then I think obviously owning the major stocks. I've said on this show, and this isn't just to blow your horn, James, like I do think Tesla's probably the best placed right now. Like I do think, particularly for robotics, it's got a very unique pitch compared to the others. And I think because he's involved in so many different parts of AI, whether it's Grok or it's DeepMind or it's Tesla, I feel as though he'll find a way to bring those together and always create value for shareholders. So I think Tesla's probably one of the best.
Yeah, the most important thing that people always overlook is the machine that makes the machine. What makes Tesla special is their ability to scale like no other. CTO, what do you see coming and how are you positioning yourself?
Yeah, I think everyone knows my position on AI as such. I think that everyone is still underestimating the impact it will have on economy, productivity, and society as a whole. It is incredible. And I mean, there's news every single day, like ChatGPT coming out with a new model. There's like China coming out. It's like day by day, this is evolving. And it's shockingly good. As we all felt, I think, the first time using ChatGPT and so on. And now it's like radically better. And it's it's not even 2 years later. When it comes to robotics, I'm not so sure. I thought a lot about it. I feel like the humanoid robots are still kind of clunky. I think that maybe the next phase will be robots that don't really look like robots. More that, the cleaning robot will get smarter, and I don't know, maybe the dishwasher or I don't know, the washing machine will fold the clothes or something. But I'm not sure that we're ready for having like a rather clunky humanoid robot walking around.
We're ready. I'd buy one tomorrow if I could get one. I have no problem with that. And by the way, just for the record, everybody, I haven't driven a car in a month. My car drives me everywhere. That's a robot on wheels.
Exactly. So that's my point. Like, the robots are already here and they're fantastic. It's like the car is a robot in a way, and it's spectacularly good. We don't need like a humanoid robot sitting there holding the wheel. The robot is the car. It just doesn't look like a robot. So I think maybe that's the next phase. And then industrial production, robots are industrial robots, and those will get smarter and better and more productive as well. So I think that that's maybe the next phase, and then humanoids might be coming a little bit later when the price performance is slightly better. That's my thinking. Nicely
wrapped up. Marty, are you buying a robot?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing people must be aware is everything is already made by robots. What we're talking about here is robotics coming into the into the consumer space. But everything you use in your life is made by robots. So as far as investing into the movement, I mean, there's a couple of things. I agree with James. I think investing in L1 networks, because crypto will be the currency of AI. That's clear. AI is not going to talk to Bank of America and do an ACH transaction. Let's all be realistic. AI will integrate with crypto very well. And that's probably a new narrative coming into this towards the end of this year. But how to invest in this? I mean, obviously the chip manufacturers are important. That could be bubbled already. But look at the robotic manufacturers, the people that make the robots, Rockwell, etc. Lots of great opportunities there. They're only going to grow. And then, yeah, absolutely. I think we're going fully robotics. The question everyone asks always is, what are humans going to do? I still haven't seen a politician answer that question. Has anybody? What are humans going to do when these jobs are eroded by robotics and AI?
Yeah, people know the answer.
I think the new narrative is, what are people going to do, and industries to support the new human ethos? What is our role on the planet? And that's going to be quite interesting.
It's pretty terrifying, and I've been talking about the fear of this UBI. We saw organizations like the WEF pushing this narrative for a long time. By 2030, you will own nothing and be happy. The governments will control you. Although I think WF, everybody realizes the gig is up for those guys. Everybody's leaving. But this is the scary, scary time. And I have sleepless nights worrying about it. And I have no reason to be worried. Okay. But I worry about the other generations coming up. It is a terrifying thing. And as
too. Like, I speak to a lot of younger Zoomers who are all in the meme coin streets. They are they think that their time is up. Like they think they have like 3 or 4 years to make money, and this is why you also have this like hyper gambling, hyper like we need to make it as quickly as possible. I've not seen a generation like it. But you speak to a 20 to 21-year-old, maybe just come out of uni, or anyone who lives in America. I see this mainly like West Coast Americans, close to like all the major AI startups. They think they have like months to make their money.
Yeah, and they are the smart ones, by the way, you're talking to, because they see the writing on the wall. But remember, everybody, as well, not financial advice, but if you feel under pressure to make money, you're going to take on extraordinary risk and you're going to lose. So baby steps, but you're dead right. The next 3 years are probably the last window of opportunity mankind has to make extraordinary gains. I firmly believe in that. And I've been saying that since late 2022 when I first saw ChatGPT. And I don't want to depress everybody, but the reason it's better to be forewarned so you can prepare. And that's why we are here. Any final wrapping up thoughts, everybody? We've gone over an hour. Huge audience here. I want to thank the mods in the chat, Sean Donnelly, TND Tesla, American Beijinger, all those, everybody else. Don't forget to subscribe to all the channels. Links are below if you're watching on my video. And you know where we all are anyway. Mando Minutes, great newsletter. I've been reading that for nearly a year or over a year. I don't remember.
Yeah, Mando, I love your newsletter.
Yeah. And then the crypto macro analyst, Marty Party, with his live spaces all the time. And CTO Larson website, YouTube channel, X. We all love it. So final thoughts. We don't want to leave on a down note. Liquidity
if I could, I think it's very important to bring it up. We talked about it many times. I mean, the action to take is to figure out what to learn, what to study to be relevant in this new world. And I think people watching here are ahead of the game. Most people have not thought about this. And the people that Mando talked to, they're not representative either. Most people, they just go to their job. They think, it's going to be fine. So that's the action to take. And I think generally you have to get higher up in the value chain. You still need the person who knows what good looks like and can organize everything, lead people. Those things are still needed. Investment, I think, is one of the best skills to learn, because that is generally an area that you have control over, you will have control over in the new space. And I think that's the action to take. It's to really step back, realize that most jobs will get disrupted one way or another, realize it's not safe, so spend some time learning the new skills to make sure staying even more relevant, because then the leverage will be increased, not the trading leverage, but how much output you can get from 1 hour spent. That is drastically increasing with AI. So if doing the right things, the money-making opportunities is going to be better than ever. But if not doing anything and sticking in some niche which is getting disrupted, you'll probably get replaced. That's
and people want to know what's going to happen tomorrow. As I said at the beginning of the show, this was the dip for buying. Tariffs always rattle the markets. They were a threatening mechanism. The Mexico-Canada tariffs can't go into place. They would destroy U.S. manufacturing, which is already on the verge. And positive thoughts, vibes from you, Mando. Liquidity is coming. This is an oversold situation. We go higher.
I think it's been a very, very tough 48 hours, right? 10 billion of liquidations, many on-chain coins down 50 to 80%, like over the last two, 3 weeks. It's been a very deep drawdown. I do think that I don't think this is a cycle top by any means. There's been a lot of talk about that. The macro setup is nothing like the last setup. Yeah, we don't have double-digit inflation. We are coming towards the end of QT. We're not going into it, and you have places like China, as we just showed with M2, coming pumping money everywhere. So the macro-based setup is very, very different. It's actually far more supportive. Growth is also relatively strong. There's not the same sort of leverage in the system. Like there's no like exchange or like exchange adjacent firm which is about to blow up. Maybe you'll get a hedge fund blow up, but I don't think it's going to take down like a Coinbase or a Binance or anything like that this cycle. I just don't really see that one thing that can like blow us up. People have said Sailor before, but it's just nowhere near that being a worry, at least at this stage. I think your only real worry here is like a black swan. So then if you're getting really, really bared up by price action, just look at the stablecoin TVL. Like, it's just gone to 220 billion. That doesn't happen during bear markets, right? That doesn't happen. The stablecoin supply halved last bear market. So what we think we've had is just like a rearrangement of the chips. I think there's been a lot of pain, a lot of understanding actually that on-chain coins, a lot of these pump fund coins can be very dangerous on these sort of liquidity suckouts. But I do think we're going to continue to go higher. We might chop for the next few weeks. I think we've said that this period kind of looks like the periods that we've seen in the past where you have a chop between, we've hit that 92K support or 91K support CTO like 6 times now already. Like that seems like a decent level of support. Maybe the high 100s, like 110 area, 106. That's like the resistance, and maybe we'll be in there for a couple of months, but don't give up. Like this is what crypto is all about. Like I think it's just been maybe a tough couple of days for people.
And watch this one tomorrow. I'm sure Marty will be all over it. Marty, final thoughts from you, my friend.
Yeah, no, I agree with Mando. I loved what you said there. Yeah, just understand that this is part of the crypto game. The volatility exists because of the derivative market, and this is not like the stock market. The stock market, there's one exchange with highly regulated derivative platforms. This is 1,600 exchanges trading the same global fungible assets, totally unregulated across jurisdiction. We've never seen anything like this. The volatility happens. You have to be part of it. If you don't accept volatility in crypto, then maybe it's not for you. But at the end of the day, buy spot and hold. Don't take profits till the end of quantitative easing, people. We've told you a million times. It's coming. Just be patient. They delay it as much as they can. And when it happens, it'll happen fast. This entire strategy over the weekend is to shake you out. If you were shaken out, learn your lesson. Don't get shaken out. Stay in, buy low. Well done to everyone who bought these dips. Wow. 3 entries. 175 on Solana, 2.5 on Sui. Just fantastic entries. Congratulations to those people. And you will be very happy towards the end of the year.
And by the way, if anybody's ever looking for a good entry, just be patient. It'll come every 2 to 4 weeks, like clockwork.
There you go.
That's the way the markets work.
Like I keep on saying this to myself whenever I'm like, oh, I'll buy a little bit today. I was like, every single couple of weeks, there's a time where I'm like, oh, I should have bought today. I should have waited before. Like, I've got to start remembering that a little bit more. That during bull cycles, like the volatility is just so unbelievably high. Every single Monday for the last 3 Mondays, people have said it's over, and then it rebounds.
Yeah,
it's been crazy.
Just never buy crypto in a sideways pattern. Wait for the flushes. You know what they look like now. Wait for them. They are coming.
And don't chase the pump. And I want to thank everybody for coming. Well done, Mando. You got to teach me how you sleep one day. I'd like to learn that little secret. Thank you, Marty. Thank you, CTO. Thank you, Mando.
Thanks, guys. Great show.
CTO, you're up moderating next week because you got stuff going on. And then Marty, you're going to be on the week after that. And then Mando, back to you and back on circulation. Thanks, team. Right. Great show. Thank you to everybody in the chat here as well. Love you all. Big one. Important. Stay cool. Stay calm. Money is coming. Bye.